So all the comments will show up there. Right
here. Maybe push the iPad camera down a little bit or closer to where the face is going.
What's that?
I don't know. You guys have a mic on?
Yes, she has both microphones. Where I am.
You need the iPad?
It's perfect now. Initiative no one on TikTok. Do you need the iPad? Do you need the iPad for the sim? Yes. Yes. So you can see up there that people are already connected. Can you see? Yes. Hi guys. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes to more people to connect. Well, maybe I'm on that mic. People is already connected, so you can see how many people is. Okay. Hi guys, my name is Greta. I'm a flight instructor here at Epic Flight Academy. While we wait for a couple more people to join, feel free to ask any questions. I'm in one of our full motion simulators special to Epic. These simulators are really cool because they are very realistic and can help save students a lot of money when it comes to training. So if you master different skills and maneuvers and procedures in the sim, then you can transfer those over to the plane and save some money. Hi George, you asked about grades required in math and physics. For Epic, you just need a high school diploma, and then to fill out the application form. And Alex, yes, we have a location in New Smyrna, as well as Ocala, Jacksonville, Tucson, St. George, Utah, Provo, Utah, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Addison, Texas. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to take off and head to the south practice area, and I'm going to show you guys some private pilot maneuvers. Alright, so the sim is currently frozen. I'm going to unfreeze it. I am currently in our New Smyrna campus. And Today, I'm not going to be showing any IFR procedures. Maybe we can do that another time. Today, we're just going to focus on some private pilot maneuvers like slow flight, stalls, steep turns, and maybe a couple of ground reference maneuvers. Alright, so I've unpaused the sim. I'm just going to add full power, and we're going to take off. So on takeoff, I'm looking to cover the horizon with my nose, and I'm looking out this section of the windshield since my forward view has kind of disappeared. And I'm pitching for 74 knots in our airspeed indicator. So I'm going to place my altitude bug on 2,500 feet, and I'm going to bug my current heading so I can stay on this south heading. And at 2,500 feet, we'll level off, and I'll show you guys some maneuvers. Can you turn the volume down with the sim? I'm not sure. Okay, just stop. Okay. Okay, I've reached 2,500 feet, and something that we do before every maneuver is our pre-maneuver checklist. So we have a mnemonic for this. It's called A squared, B squared, C squared checklist. A squared meaning altitude and airspeed. So the first maneuver I'm going to demonstrate is slow flight, which is just maneuvering the airplane in what we call the region of reverse command, where pitch controls airspeed and power controls altitude, when normally it's the opposite. So I'm going to slow down the airplane to a configuration where pitch controls airspeed, power controls altitude, and we're going to maneuver around at this specified airspeed, which for slow flight clean, which is what I'll demonstrate today, slow flight in the takeoff configuration, we're pitching 455 to 60 knots. So we're starting at 2,500 feet. The goal is to stay at our original altitude. And as far as airspeed goes, we're starting at around 90 and we'll pitch 455 to 60. B squared is best place to land and before maneuver setup. So off my right wing here is Massey Airport. So in real life, if I were to have an engine failure during this maneuver, I would head towards Massey Airport to make an emergency landing. And then before maneuver setup, I'll make sure my fuel selector valve is on both, mixture is rich, and lights are on so I'm as visible as possible. And then finally, C squared. C stands for clearing turns and communications. So clearing turns include two 30-degree bank turns, 90 degrees in either direction to scan for traffic. So while I'm executing this turn, I would be looking at sections of the horizon for other traffic that may be a factor while I'm executing this maneuver. So there's the first 90-degree turn. I'm going back to my original heading, looking outside. I scan for traffic. Oh, I think I just got it. Let's see. There we go.
So now Trevor's talking, I can't see anything very well.
Can you guys hear me a little bit better now? I turned off this the volume for the Sim.
Just a little bit louder.
Okay. Alright, so I did my clearing turns, and then next would be communications. So we're in the South Practice area, which has a designated frequency, which everybody in the South Practice area should be on if they're out here maneuvering. It's 123.5, so I put that in COM 2. I would say something like South Practice area traffic, red-tailed skyhawk, and then my tail number. We are 3 miles to the southeast of Massey at 2,500 feet doing slow flight. That way everybody knows my intentions, where I am, and if they're in the same general vicinity that we need to look out for each other. So that concludes the A squared, B squared, C squared checklist, so now I'm going to begin the maneuver. So I'm going to pull power to 1500, and this is to help us slow down. I'm also going to have to supplement with trim, because in order to slow down, I'm going to have to add some back pressure in order to bleed off this airspeed. You can see my airspeed indicator, my airspeed's getting slower and slower and slower. I'm going to have to counteract with this loss of lift. 55 to 60 knots, I'm adding back some power, and I'm going to be in a nose-high attitude. So the goal is to maintain altitude and airspeed until specified by your instructor or an examiner if you're on a check ride. So right now I'm pitching for 55 to 60 knots. I'll get stabilized here in this configuration, and then we can maneuver around as necessary. So if I see myself getting fast, I'm going to pick up the nose a little bit. If I see myself getting high, I'm going to take out a little bit of power. That's the stall warning. That's okay. All we need to do is briefly lower the nose. So now we can execute gentle bank turns. During slow flight, we don't want to do anything more than 15 to 20 degrees. I'm getting a little bit high, so I'm going to take out some power, lower the nose, and get back to my desired altitude. If I wanted to climb in slow flight, I would pitch for my desired airspeed, and then I'll have to add full power. I'm going to pitch up to maintain 55 to 60 knots. Let's say I want to level off at 3,000 feet. And at 3,000 feet, I'm going to recover by lowering the nose. I still have full power in because I was climbing. I'm going to leave full power in until I get back to a desired cruise airspeed, which is around 90 to 100 knots. So as I approach my desired airspeed, I'm going to slowly take out power, trim, use my elevator trim to relieve some control pressures, and get back to my desired heading. So that was slow flight clean. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I will answer them. Now I'm going to demonstrate steep turns, which are two 45-degree bank turns in either direction. We turn all the way around 360 degrees to the left and then to the right while maintaining altitude and airspeed. So again, I would do the a squared, b squared, c squared checklist. For time's sake today, we won't do that every time before each maneuver, but in the real world, this is something you would want to emphasize before every maneuver. However, as part of the setup for steep turns, I do have to discuss airspeed, which is 95 knots. So we're going to try to maintain 95 knots throughout the whole steep turn. And I've started at 3,000 feet, so we're going to maintain 95 knots, 3,000 feet. And I'm going to pick a prominent visual reference point off of my nose, and that's how I'm going to know when I've completed the turn. So off my nose is a big lake. So I'm going to use this as my reference point, and I'm going to supplement this with my heading bug. I'm going to get back down to 95 knots, and we're going to begin the steep turn. So I'm going to roll into a steep turn, lead with rudder, add a little bit of power, nose up trim, 45 degrees is this here, and I'm going to look outside, find a sight picture that I like where I'm maintaining altitude and airspeed, and find a point on the cowling where the horizon is slicing through. So right now it's right at the corner of the MFD, and I know I'm maintaining altitude and airspeed with this power setting, so I'm just going to keep it here. And I'm looking outside, I'm looking to spot my point, and that's how I know when to roll out of my first turn. There's my point. I'm going to lead the turn out with right rudder, fight the balloon from my trim that I added, and begin my turn to the right, 45 degrees. Maintaining altitude and airspeed again. I may need to adjust my trim a little bit or power setting. I'm getting a little bit fast, so I took out some power. Again, I'm finding a point on the cowling where the horizon is touching. Right now it's right in between the PFD and the MFD. So I know with this sight picture, I'm maintaining altitude, so I'm just going to keep this here. Keep looking outside to spot my point. And there is my lake, so I'm going to slowly start to roll out of my turn. Take out the trim that I added and cruise out the plane. And then we would do the cruise checklist. So that was a steep turn. Next, I'll be showing you guys power on and power off stalls. We'll start with power on stalls. We practice these to know how to recover from a stall in the takeoff configuration. So say you took off, we need to rotate, and you rotated a little bit too much, and you induced a stall. That would be a stall in the takeoff configuration. So we practice this to know what it feels like to stall and how to recover. So this is in the clean configuration, also known as flaps up or takeoff configuration. Flaps up and full power. So to begin this, we would do the a squared, b squared, c squared checklist. And then we are going to slow down to rotation speed, which is 55 knots. I'm going to full power to around 1500 RPM. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to have to add some back pressure to supplement for my loss of lift. And I'm trying not to lose any altitude in the setup. Because right now, in theory, we would be on the ground, rolling down the runway. I'm looking for 55 knots. There's 55, 55 full power. I'm pitching up for 20 degrees nose up, while maintaining coordination by using my rudders. And there was the stall. I gently lower the nose to break the stall, gain back some airspeed, and immediately initiate a climb away from my starting altitude, since the starting altitude we simulate as the ground. So we wouldn't want to keep pitching the nose towards the ground. We would want to climb away and get to a safe altitude away from the ground. So I'm going to level off here at 3,300 feet, and we're going to do a power off stall. So a power off stall simulates a stall in the landing configuration. So if you can imagine, you're coming into land, 65 knots is our approach speed. You go to pull power out, you go to flare, and you flare too much, and you exceed the critical angle of attack and induce a stall in the landing configuration. So that's what we're going to simulate here. I'm going to turn back towards the north, and we're going to start this stall at 3,300 feet. And this is going to be in the landing configuration, so flaps extended and power idle. So I'm going to bug my current heading. I'm going to start at an airspeed where I have time to set up, because as soon as I add flaps, my airspeed will decrease drastically, and I don't want to rush to set up the maneuver. So I'm going to pull power to 1500 RPM. As soon as I'm below 110 knots, I'm going to add flaps 10. I'm maintaining altitude. Below 85, flaps 20. Below 85, flaps full. And now I'm pitching for 65 at my airspeed indicator. I'm going to descend 100 knots to simulate an approach at 65 knots. Once I see 3,200 in the airspeed indicator, I'm going to pull power to idle, simulate a flare, where I flare too much. I'm going to hold the nose 10 degrees above the horizon. There's the stall warning. Immediately add full power. First 10 degrees of flaps right away. I'm going to begin climb. Positive rate flaps 10. Then positive rate above 60 flaps up. And now I'm climbing away from the ground. And then you would continue your climb until specified by the instructor or the DPE if you're on a check ride. So I'm going to level off at 3,300. And the goal is to lose minimal altitude in the recovery, since again we are simulating stalling close to the ground. And then you would do the cruise checklist. So I'm going to add power back, trim out the plane, check my engine instruments, and then you can turn off lights. I like to keep my lights on because I want to maintain visible to other people. So those are some of the basic maneuvers that you would learn as a private student. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you want me to demonstrate something else or something again, I totally can. Looks like I missed a question from George earlier. How do I keep myself motivated through the course? Just remember why you love aviation so much. It is something that you have to be passionate about in order to succeed in the industry, just because of how much work it is. But if you keep your eyes set on the final goal, whatever that may be for you, and that's what's cool about aviation, is that there are so many different pathways that you can take. But if you keep your mind set on your goal, you will be successful. If you focus, if you do your homework, if you study, find a group of friends to study with that can help motivate you. You guys can hold each other accountable. Epic also has a lot of free resources, like the library, which features a group of certified flight instructors, as well as a simulator for you to use for free. We also have a tutoring program where you can be paired with a flight instructor student, someone who's working on their CFI, and they will tutor you. And it's a mutually beneficial relationship, as they get to practice their teaching skills, and you get to be tutored, and that's all for free. You can also backseat activities at Epic. So if a student is all right with you observing their activity, you can watch them do an activity with their instructor, or you can watch a prog or an end of course activity and kind of get a gauge of what that may be like for you. You can write down questions that the prog pilot asks, maybe learn some new things along the way.
Maybe you can explain it or demonstrate an emergency situation.
Okay, sure, I can do that. I'm going to demonstrate an emergency approach to land. So say I'm flying along in the south practice area, and my engine fails. This would be no good. I'm going to simulate an engine failure by pulling my power to idle. Immediately, I'm pitching for 68 knots, which is our best glide speed. This will give us the furthest distance for the least amount of altitude lost. And right away, I'm going to start looking for a good place to land. I see at my 12 o'clock, I have Massey Airport, which we passed earlier. I see 68 knots on my airspeed indicator. I'm going to keep that there. And now my next priority is trying to get the engine restarted. So if my engine failed, I'm going to assume my engine-driven fuel pump failed. And what I'm going to do about this is make sure my fuel cycle valve's on both. Fuel shut-off valve in, mixture full rich, fuel pump on, auxiliary fuel pump on, and then I would crank if the propeller wasn't still spinning. If it was still spinning, it should restart on its own. However, if it is not an engine-driven fuel pump failure, the engine would restart, and then I would continue on this emergency approach to land. So it looks like I'll be able to make Massey. At this point, I'm taking into account the winds. We want to land with a headwind for the shortest amount of landing distance. And this would be especially important if you were aiming for a field that might be a little bit shorter. Massey is an airport, so we are lucky right now. But if you were in a situation where there weren't many airports around, landing with a headwind is going to be important. So once I know I'm not going to get my engine restarted, I'm going to do what's called the emergency approach to land without engine power checklist. I'm going to squawk 7700, which would imply that I am an emergency aircraft. The emergency is that my engine failed. And then I'm going to go on what's called guard frequency, or 121.5, and I'm going to make what's called a mayday call. So I'd say mayday, 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 epic red, whatever our tail number is for today. Experience an engine failure. We are making an emergency approach to land in Massey. And then whoever listening to guard would correspond with the necessary people to get us help to land, or to get us services in Massey. Then I would make sure that our flaps are down if we need flaps. I'm not going to put flaps down quite yet because flaps cause us to sink since they induce drag. I'm not going to put flaps down until my landing is assured. So I have Massey right here off my 12 o'clock. I think I'm going to make my field. I'm going to make gentle bank S turns to lose some altitude. I think now I will add some flaps. Below 110, flaps 10. Below 85, flaps 20. I'm going to unlatch the cabin doors in case some damage occurs on the aircraft during landing. I don't want to be stuck inside. And then, as I'm coming into land, I may need one more notch of flaps full. I'm going to pull out my mixture, pull out my fuel shut-off valve, and then turn the key off so the prop isn't spinning anymore. And then I would also turn off my master switch, which would make these screens go dark. So I have Massey in sight. Looks like we're going to make our field. And my nose aim for the numbers. And we've made a safe emergency landing with an engine failure at Massey. Let me know if you guys have any questions about that. I see one comment, kind of demonstrate the procedure to join a 45-degree downwind for a runway. How do you turn around the airport to know which direction to go? Okay, so we have a few resources that we can use. when it comes to orienting yourself in relation to an airport. I'm going to put myself back up into the air using the iPad, and then I'll show you how to enter a 45-degree downwind for an airport or for a specified runway. So I'm going to reposition myself just outside the New Smyrna Beach Class Delta airspace. I'm going to put myself at 1,400 feet at 100 knots so I can show you the whole setup. And I'll be demonstrating a 45-degree downwind entry for runway 25 at New Smyrna. Alright, so as soon as I unpause the sim, okay, so I'm going to start descending towards my airport. I'm going to use my MFD or my multi-function display to kind of help orient myself. Runway 25 faces this way, so a 45-degree entry would be, I would come a little bit from the southwest and then enter a downwind for our specified runway, so runway 25. I'm going to take my flaps out. So I'm aiming for the airport. I don't want to get too low, too far out, just in case we were to have an emergency. So right now I'm aiming for the midpoint of the runway that we were instructed to land on, which is runway 25. Runway 25 would have a 250 heading, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in my HSI for added situational awareness. So I know that when I'm landing, I should be facing this blue heading bug. New Smyrna Beach Airport traffic pattern is 800 feet, and I'm going to turn downwind at around a mile from the runway. So I have this mile ring set in my MFD. Once this ring touches the runway, I'm going to begin my turn, and that would be 45-degree midfield downwind entry for runway 25. So here I'm turning downwind, implying that I have a tailwind. And I'm looking outside to make sure I'm abeam my runway. Abeam my touchdown point, I'm pulling power to 1500, below 110 flaps 10, and I'm going to begin an 85 knot descent. All while looking outside at my runway. When my runway is 45 degrees off of my shoulder, whether that's right or left shoulder, depending on if we're doing right or left traffic, I'm going to turn our base leg. On base, I'm pitching for 75 knots with flaps 20, so below 85, I'm going to add a flaps 20. And now here is where I'm going to decide or determine if I am high or low, fast or slow, and then adjust accordingly. So right now I like the glide path that I'm on. I'm pitching for 75 knots. I may have to add a little bit more power so I don't get low. I'm keeping an eye on my runway. I'm going to turn final as to not overshoot the runway. On final, I'm pitching for 65 knots with flaps full. So I have my runway in sight. I'm going to take out power, level the nose so I don't get too fast. I have my nose aimed for the numbers to touch down at a point a little bit beyond the numbers. Keeping an eye on airspeed, altitude. And as I come over the runway, my runway is made. I'm going to slowly reduce power to idle. I'm going to enter what's called ground effect, where the plane kind of floats right here. Then I would feel a little bit of a sink and then begin a flare, and then let the nose fall. So that was a 45-degree downwind entry for runway 25 at New Smyrna. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Tyrese asked if we could demonstrate a teardrop entry to a hold.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Okay, sure. So a teardrop entry to a hold would be an instrument procedure, which I'm more than happy to demonstrate. I'm going to put myself back into the south practice area. And I'm going to pick a waypoint where I will do a teardrop entry. So let's say I wanted to hold at Oki, which is over here to the southwest. I want to do a teardrop entry to this holding pattern. So let's say I wanted to fly direct to Oki. I'm going to put that in my GPS since it's a GPS waypoint. So now this purple needle is pointing directly towards Oki. So I'm going to fly directly towards Oki. And I'm going to give myself holding instructions to where we are holding a teardrop entry, or entering Oki, the hold at Oki with a teardrop entry. Okay, so we're going directly to Oki right now. Let's say we wanted to hold south of Oki on the 180 course, and you wanted to make left turns. I'm going to fly towards Oki.
So after you finish this one, we're just gonna do the final. Just answer like couple questions over there.
Okay.
You might have to ask some question. Then we can go check out that website. Fill out a brief on for it. If you have any questions, make sure you fill it out.
Okay. Alright, so I've loaded my hold into the GPS. So I'm going directly to Oki. Once I get to Oki, I'm going to fly a heading that is either 30 degrees more or less than my inbound heading, depending on whether I'm making left or right turns. So the acronym that we use is LARS, or left add, right subtract. So if I'm making left turns, I'm going to add 30 degrees to my inbound heading, or outbound heading, which is 180. So I'm going to fly a 210 heading upon reaching Oki, and that'll be for 1 minute since I gave myself 1 minute legs. So I'm going to go to my timer, and once I reach Oki, I'll know by this flag flipping from a to a from position, and I'm going to fly a 210 heading. So I bugged my heading. waiting for that flag flip. So I passed Oki. I'm going to start my timer, and I'm flying a 210 heading for 1 minute. And while I'm in this outbound leg, or the entry to my heading, or the entry to my hold, I'm going to start thinking about whether I'm turning right or left to intercept the inbound course. So my inbound course is going to be the reciprocal of the outbound heading I gave myself, which was 180. So I'm going to turn to 360 heading to intercept Oki inbound. However, I need to know, am I turning left or right? Because I need to stay on the protected side of the hold. This is where we use an acronym called POTS, or Parallel Opposite Teardrop Same. So for a parallel entry, you would turn opposite the direction of the hold to re-intercept the inbound course. For a teardrop, it's going to be the same. So I gave myself left turns in this teardrop entry. So I'm going to turn left to intercept the 360 course inbound to Oki. And my 1 minute timer has passed, so I'm going to make a standard rate turn to the left to a 360 heading. So my inbound leg, I'm going to start the timer when my wings are level or the CDI is centered, whichever happens first. Once I turn to a 360 heading, I think that's going to happen first. So once I level off on 360, I'm going to start my timer again. I'm going to fly for 1 minute. I'm also going to aim to re-intercept the inbound course. And then once I pass Oki on the inbound leg, that will be when I am established in the hold at Oki, and that's when you would tell air traffic control that as well. And my CDI is centered. I'm looking at my timer, waiting to cross Oki, and then upon crossing Oki, I'll make a left turn back to a 180 heading, since 180 is my outbound heading. 55 seconds, a couple more seconds before I turn outbound again. Stop the timer, begin my outbound turn. I'm making left turns. And you would just repeat this until instructed by ETC or your instructor, depending on why you are in a hold. There are multiple reasons why aircraft are put into holds, whether that's weather, there's an emergency in progress at an airport and they need all the planes to hold outside the airspace. And another reason, which is typically more common in the airlines, is they need to burn off fuel. So a lot of airliners have a max landing weight, and if they have too much fuel, they can't land over a certain weight, so they need to enter a hold to burn off some fuel and get a little bit lighter. Okay, so that was a teardrop entry to a hold at a GPS waypoint called Oki. Do you guys have any more questions?
epicflightacademy.com för alla grundläggande information. Thank you. Stay tuned for the next live.
All right, everybody, that concludes our simulator session. I hope you guys learned something new. Thank you for joining. Be sure, if you have any more questions, you can go to the Epic Flight Academy homepage and get in contact with someone from admissions who will be able to answer all of your questions. Stay tuned for our next live. Thank you. Again, my name is Greta. I am a flight instructor here at Epic. I'm always happy to help. I will see you guys next time. There's best end.